That.
Cool.
Yay.
Hey guys, welcome. My name is Anna, and we are coming in hot here from Lyft HQ. We're doing something special. Yeah, I'm gonna say hi.
Hey.
We're doing something special today for the first time. We're calling it Lyft Live, and it's basically a Q&A session for like everyone here and you guys, so that we can stay up to date with all the changes with Lyft. And we also are really excited because we have a lot of special guests here today from all over, near and far. Some flew, some drove. And so I want to just go around the room and introduce everybody really quickly before we get started. So Marie from Sacramento. Hi, thanks for coming.
Hi.
And then we have Stasa from Stockton, but also a SAC driver.
Thank you.
And then we have Javon from Sacramento as well.
Yeah. Yep. Hey,
Thanks for coming. Nora, Denver.
Colorado.
Thanks for flying all the way out. And another flyer, Nashville. We got you over there, Matt.
Yes.
Cool. And then Albert from San Diego.
Hi, San Diego.
And then to my direct left, of course, we have John, co-founder of Lyft. Thanks for coming in.
Of course.
John's ready to take some questions.
I'm also a
from
Lyft
everybody.
driver.
Also a Lyft driver.
Yeah.
One of our founding San Francisco drivers. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about what all you guys do, because with Lyft now, you know, you're not just a driver, you can be a mentor or a recruiter, or there's so many different roles. So let's do a quick breakdown of sort of what your guys' experience and role has been with Lyft. And let's start with you, Marie.
Okay.
So you are an online community specialist.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what that is I am in the lounge for the Pacific, and I just monitor it and keep an eye on it. And if I see anything that might need attention, then I would alert Allie, who is the community manager. And I just try, if anything escalates, maybe I'll try to, not maybe, I will try to diffuse it and get it back on track. And, you know, sometimes it will go off track and not even be on the subject of the post. So I just try to help Allie out as much as I can.
That's awesome. Cool. And then Stasa, you are a driver marketing coordinator.
Yes, I started as a founding driver in SAC, and then helped launch Stockton, where I live. And when I saw the community driver marketing position come up, I thought, you know, that's perfect. That says my name all over it.
Cool.
So what I do now is I reach out to new people in my community and businesses, and plan partnerships and give them coasters at their bars, or promo code cards with their name, special promo code for them. And it gets them really excited. It's mutually beneficial, and I love it, because I'm spreading the Lyft love. And I think it's just awesome because, creating the relationship with them, makes us stronger, and I love making new friends.
Awesome. Like the honorary Lyft cheerleader.
Good at it.
Javon, you're a content specialist.
Yes,
How'd you
yeah.
get involved with that?
Well, actually, I stumbled upon the Hub, the Creative Collective, and they were looking for drivers to create content. And since I already do daily vlogs for my YouTube channel, and I'm a driver, I said, wow, there's so many stories out there. And I said, it would be really cool if we did like a day in the life of a Lyft driver to kind of see their perspective on how they drive. And so I did a story with Marcus Sorelli's Sacramento Stockton driver. I did a day in the life video with him. And it was great. And I really wanted to start a movement so that other cities and other people and other drivers could be inspired to create their own day in the life or their own video content for their community. And so they're really fun to kind of reach out. And so now I'm looking for other drivers, and I really want to hear their stories, some deep, stories about why they choose to be a Lyft driver and why they're doing it. And, good things like there's people doing like Lyft for good and things like that. Those are stories that need to be out there. And so since I do daily vlogs, right, and I carry a camera wherever I go, I figured why not record some drivers and see how it really is to be a driver on the road and how they interact with passengers. And it's been amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Nora, you're in one of our newer roles. You're a recruiter for us.
I am. So I've been a driver for Lyft since New Year's Eve because, why not? Starting on New Year's Eve. And then in the Denver market. And then I became a mentor after I'd had several hundred rides in and still had my 5-star rating. And then from there, they asked me to start talking to new drivers, or driver candidates, really. So recruiters talk to driver candidates, people who are in the application process but haven't quite made it all the way through to doing a mentor ride. answer their questions about safety, a lot of questions about safety, answer their questions about how does the app work, why would you do this, and how awesome is it, and talk some people into it, and quite frankly, talk some people out of it.
Thank you. You're helping us find those best drivers.
Yeah.
Matt, you are involved with Lyft for Good.
Yes, I've been driving since we launched in Nashville. I wear a few other hats, but with the Lyft for Good, it's kind of something we were already working on. And when Lyft came out with the official Lyft for Good, program, we kind of integrated the two, and we're able to blow our event up, and we're looking forward to doing the next one in the next couple of months in Nashville, and see if we can't just spread it across the country, which I think is our next goal.
Awesome. Do you have a specific plan for the upcoming event? What it's going to focus on?
We do the same thing every time. We just we collect the bags, or the backpacks, and then once we've all got a stockpile, we stuff them, and that's it. But Rochester just did their first Lyft Kits event, so it's spread to another city already, and we're hoping to get it in all 68.
And who gets the backpacks?
Anyone that is in need. Most of the time it's homeless people, but it's not a rule. Anybody that looks like they could use a bite to eat, or a blanket.
Nice.
Awesome. Albert, you are a driver event coordinator.
That's right. Been driving for Lyft since July last year, and started hosting events for drivers like before the program, the driver event coordinator program came out, and just kind of moved into it. Done a lot of pretty cool events. Like the biggest one we've done was the San Diego Pride Parade.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. Matt flew down from
Disco Lyft?
Yeah, Disco Lyft flew down. our fearless DJ. So that's a lot of fun.
Cool.
Right.
And you get a lot of people turning out to those events, right?
Oh yeah. San Diegans are crazy for events. So
And by a lot, you mean?
I mean, yeah.
usually like 50 to 70 at our weeklies. Like even just smaller events, like hey, we're gonna go to Family Fun Center. We have 40, 50 people show up on Monday. So
That's awesome. On a Monday?
yeah.
Cool. That's really good.
40-50.
Thanks you guys for sharing all that. It's really nice to see how many different roles that people can take on. So you all have a few questions, but John, if you wanted to say anything first before we got into Q&A.
Yeah, just to give everyone kind of the reason for why we want to do this. One, we just want to say thank you to all the drivers that have helped Lyft become what it is. And we know that without drivers, Lyft would not be the fastest growing rideshare company. And what makes Lyft special are drivers like you guys and drivers that are watching. And so the idea for Lyft Live actually came from something that we did a couple weeks ago, where we had San Francisco drivers come into the office and just meet with them and say, what's on your mind? What can we do better? Because we want to make sure that as we grow, we stay really close to the driver community. And so the purpose here is, how can we do that on a bigger scale? Me and the team can't be in every city, but using technology, we can communicate with others across the country to get feedback on how we can continue to improve and make the best possible platform for you. So that's the idea. This is the first one. We're going to keep making improvements and updates to how we do it, and keep growing kind of the base of drivers that tune in. Hopefully that we're going to make sure that it's helpful information. A couple quick things I wanted to address, and then we'd love to just have this open. Any question is okay, and we'll just start answering some questions. And it looks like there's a bunch of questions. Tips, which has been a popular one for a long time, that we will be sure to address. But just a couple quick things about Lyft Line. Lyft Line is a new product that some of you may know about here in San Francisco, and the idea is that you can match up multiple routes, people that are going the same way. And this is part of our larger vision. Our idea with Lyft is to create a movement where we bring people together to make transportation more affordable, more convenient. And Lyft Line is really exciting for us because it does that. It makes the ride more affordable to the passenger while making the ride more valuable to the driver. And it's better for the driver because they're typically longer trips. And that's going well. We have some things to iron out before bringing that to other cities, but we're excited about that. The other thing that I wanted to be open about addressing is obviously the commissions. Any decision that we make around pay, we really weigh very heavily. We know that you and other drivers that are listening really may depend on this income to pay for important things, whether that's family bills or whatever, and that matters to us. And just know that we take those decisions very seriously. In order to grow together as a community, as a company, we have to pay for all the expenses and be able to continue to raise capital so that we can grow this, this thing that we all love. And so we always knew, and we communicated that, hey, we're going to have a temporary reprieve of commissions such that we can grow the driver base, but that we'll be bringing it back. And we brought it back in a way that really, for now aligns incentives that are good for the business. So if a driver is driving more, whenever a driver is brought onto the platform, we have expenses, whether that's the mustache or whether that's just the mentor session, whether it's the background check. These are upfront expenses that we have to pay for every driver, whether it's ads to find drivers. And because we have all those expenses, if a driver comes on the platform and only drives for 2 hours, that's really expensive for us than a driver that's driving 10 hours or 20 hours. And that's why we created this idea of a driver bonus right now as a way, hey, as we're moving towards commissions, let's align some of the incentives. And we love having drivers that drive 1 hour or 2 hours, but we just need to make sure that we can pay for those expenses that we have. So that's how we thought about rolling it out. I'm also happy to answer any specific questions on that. But should we go around and ask a few other questions?
Yeah, for sure. Let's kick it off. You guys all have some. And I also want to let everybody know, tuning in, it looks like we've got a lot of questions already. Ask any question at any time. If somebody else asks one that you really like, you can vote for it, and it'll shoot it up the list. Marie, do you want to ask yours?
Yeah. Are there any plans in the future about creating loyalty programs for existing passengers, like every 10 rides you get $10 credit or anything like that?
Yeah, we've definitely thought about it, and I'd say we're still kind of thinking about it. We're focused on how can we make the most affordable ride yet get the drivers the most money for all rides. And so that's our focus, and that's what we've prioritized with things like Lyft Line. But we have given it some thought. There's nothing imminent that's going to be coming at this point. We have thought about, on the driver's side, and something that you all represent is, driver roles. And for anyone who's just joining, we have drivers, from around the country that have joined us, who all represent different roles that drivers can become. So whether that's, you start as a driver, and then you become a mentor, and then you become a recruiter. We want to continue to provide those opportunities, and we've thought about that as a way to maintain driver loyalty. We've also thought of the driver perks program, where we have benefits for drivers that are driving more. So we'll keep thinking about it for sure.
Okay.
Cool. Sasha.
How did you meet Logan and decide to become business partners with him?
So Logan Green, who's our CEO and my co-founder, we met on Facebook.
Stop.
Yeah.
Good old fashioned.
Yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
we had a mutual friend in common, another guy named John, but we call him Juancho. And Juancho is a guy I met in Spain. It's very complicated.
Can we get a diagram?
So Logan, in 2007, was really passionate about transportation. And he'd been on a public transit board. And the public transit board in Santa Barbara was funding bus lines. And he got really frustrated because the business model for bus lines is really bad. It's such that when you pay to get on the bus, it only covers 30% of the operating costs. So the only way to get more bus lines when they get full is to raise taxes. And in our political environment, that's not going to happen. And so he felt that public transportation is really important. It brings affordable, convenient, reliable transportation, or the promise is that it will do all those things. But the reality is that public transportation is broken. 5% of trips happen on public transportation. It takes twice as long as driving where you need to go. And so he then went to Zimbabwe and saw, like in many developing countries, people sharing rides out of necessity. And what he saw is, people within their private cars, private vans, picking people up along the way. And he was like, how could, Santa Barbara County, a wealthy county in the United States, not be able to provide public transportation, but in Zimbabwe, kind of a grassroots transportation system was working. So his background, he could build websites, and he started building what he called Zimride after Zimbabwe. My last name is Zimmer. So I was on Facebook, and I've been obsessed with this idea of filling empty seats. 80% of seats are empty at all times. How could we make a transportation system that brings people together, that makes people money, that saves people money, and writing a business plan for it. And when I saw Logan starting Zimride, and it really called out to me, considering the last name and the name. And so that's how we met, and that's how we got connected. Yeah.
Cool. We're going to jump to one of these questions because you mentioned talking about tipping. So Kathleen asked, are there updates to making tipping easier upcoming?
Yes. So the first thing we did, we changed the word. That was step one, and we've seen an improvement in that. But as many of you have said, there are passengers who would like to tip you for the incredible experiences they have with you as drivers. And there's some obvious ways to do that. I think even in one of the questions, it talked about some of the specific ways to do that. And those are some of the things that we're considering. Just making it really obvious to the passenger. Hey, if I want to leave $1, $2, $5, make that really simple. So the quick answer is yes. I'm sure the next question would be when. And I don't know the exact timing, but I would say in the next couple of months, we should be testing the other version. We always want to test it because sometimes the user behavior is counterintuitive. And if for any reason adding that would lead to less rides or less tips, we would want to know that. But it is something that we will continue to test, and there should be user interface updates in the coming months.
Cool. I love when I get out of a really great Lyft ride and then I go to my phone and I'm like, tip, tip, tip.
And the fireworks?
Yeah, and all the fireworks are on. Awesome. Let's jump this way. Albert, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, what's the story behind the mustache?
Yeah. So in 2012, when we were coming up with this idea for Lyft, we were going to actually call it Zimride Instant. And that was, we had launched the company Zimride, been operating for 5 years, and let's say at Zimride Instant. And one of our advisors is this guy, Alex Boguski, and he's there's this ad agency that's pretty well known called Crispin Porter Boguski, and he's like the most creative director in the country. And he pushed us, and he said, you gotta think of something fresh, think of something simple. And he always pushed me to be a little bit audacious and get attention in the way that you do marketing or branding. And so an intern we had at the time, Harrison, he was here for the summer from University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, came up with the idea to call it Lyft. And one of our engineers said, why don't we change it to a Y? Because we couldn't get the URL. LIFT, it was Otis Elevator's website, Lyft.com. And so that's how we came up with Lyft with a Y. And then the mustache, I was just thinking about kind of the advice Boguski had given me over the years, and how could we, my background is in hospitality, so I always thought about how can we make people smile every time they get in a Lyft. And one way is having incredible drivers, and I think that's the main reason why people are happy using Lyft. But how could we set the stage, right? When you walk into a hotel or restaurant, you have sometimes different feelings. And how could you have a feeling when you see your Lyft that reassures you, that makes you smile, that also would create word of mouth buzz and would personify the car, right? One thing that we feel is that cities have been historically built for cars and buildings, but we want it to be around people. Is there a way to kind of poke fun at that by making the car more like a person? And so that's where the mustache came from. And then it was literally the first idea. I was like, let's put a mustache on the cars. And then pink was just to make it a little bit more audacious. In reality, there are no pink mustaches, and we thought that would be a really funny, shocking thing to see on cars. There was a company that was already making them called Carstache, run by Ethan Eiler. who's from Menlo Park, California, and he now works here on our brand team.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the story of the mustache. Yeah.
And now we've seen some drivers that have dyed their mustaches pink. Great. I'm going to do one of our questions that was asked before,
Sure.
and it has to do with one of our drivers who has a home in Athens, Greece, and they were wondering when we were planning to go international and launch places like that.
So we can't say when we're going to go international. It'll happen, and it'll happen within a few months. But for business reasons, we have to be a little bit coy about when we announce something like that. We want to make sure we maximize the amount of press that we can get for the movement, and so we want to hold that until we have the news, and then reporters will cover it. So that is in the plans. Athens is not one of the first ones on the list. I think some of the main cities in Europe will make sense. Paris, London, Canada's interesting. Sydney, Australia's interesting. And then we'll roll out from there. You guys think the mustache will work in Europe?
Of course.
Make it a little more curly.
Yeah.
Jemma, do you want to ask your question?
Oh yeah, okay. So I know there's a lot of theme rides. Disco Lyft, space Lyft, hip hop Lyft, and I know you're a driver. What would be your theme car?
I got this. It's a really good question. I hate to steal someone else's theme, but I'm a big fan of karaoke lists. And so June here in San Francisco has a really sweet setup. And so one of my guilty pleasures is singing. And I'm not so good. I don't feel so guilty about it. But, people that know me, when I'm in a good mood, I'm happy, I'm always just kind of like softly singing or humming.
Yeah.
And so my wife either really loves it or really hates it. But I probably want to be singing along with my passengers, so that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Cool. Nora, do you want to ask yours?
So we talked about with Google Hangout and doing these types of things, it helps that communication and that tie back with our drivers. And what about other physical locations other than San Francisco and potentially New York? What about in some of those in between mid-sized markets?
Yeah, and we're always considering that. I can tell you right now, we're really looking to the driver community to help us. The way we think of, we want, part of the idea here is we really want to be in this together and working together and making sure that we're hearing your feedback and making sure that we're creating the best platform for you. And as long as you guys feel that that is true, and as long as we uphold that, then our hope is that together we can have local presences everywhere. And so we think it's a better operational scaling model that we can invest more in the drivers and in other things if the community itself help builds the community, right? And that's been at the beginning of everything we've done, whether it's drivers onboarding drivers, with mentors and recruiting. And so a lot of these roles are the idea, how do we have a physical presence? Well, first we have to be really connected to you so that you know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that your feedback is getting heard and results in changes. But I think it's even more powerful to have drivers, you're doing events. I think that's extremely powerful, and that's how we look at that as the best possible way to scale, so that we can be in every corner of the country, and that depends on us having the really close relationship, and that's why we're investing in things like this.
Awesome. We're going to go to one of ours from the Hangout. This is from Gary, and it has to do with ratings. He said, I think it would be helpful if we could see any rating below a 4-star. Then we could do something to correct it. Is there any plans for that?
So what is your guys' experience? Don't we pass the comments along?
We get the 5-star
Yeah.
comments, but the ones that are lower, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the questions we had.
We get some of them. There are some that we
5-star comments and 4-star comments and below.
Yeah.
If they comment, we get them. But most of the time they don't comment, so we don't know what
To improve on.
a 3-star, what's a 2-star, what's a 1. We don't know the breakdown.
So my understanding is that we do pass along all text comments
Right.
to you.
Yes.
But someone tell me if I'm wrong.
That's
No,
right.
me too.
So we do pass along all text comments, and the idea there is exactly that. If you do have a specific piece of feedback that a passenger wants to give you, you will get that anonymously.
Right.
And that is a way to say, hey, the car was a mess, or they missed a turn or whatever. We want you to hear that feedback, so hopefully in an effort to help make that experience better. So we do that. Maybe what the comment is about is what you're saying is that we see just like we have this many under 5 ratings.
4 and under.
And
Yeah.
I think maybe the feedback from Gary is, could we see how many 4 stars, how many 3 stars?
How many 2 stars?
That's
So-
what I was saying.
Do you guys think
Yeah,
that
we
would
don't
be
have
really
yes.
helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if they're not meaning immediately. Like, we know that we just got a lower star rating or that night, because we don't know until the following week.
So
I don't think
No,
they
you'd
mean
get
immediately.
it. Yeah, you'd
I
get
think this
your
would
daily
cut down-
report, no?
I'm sorry, I think this would cut down on emails to performance too. Because when people get 4s and unders,
Yeah.
they email performance and say, can I know if they were 3s or 2s or 1s?
Yeah.
What were they?
So I guess the way we've approached it is we do try to give you all comments and any flags, right? And
Right.
those are things that can actionably be, you can take action on, right? So if
Right.
you got, 3 under 5-star ratings and 1 flag for safety and 1 flag for cleanliness, it would give you directionally, okay, well, I don't want to get any stars under 5, and I should keep my car cleaner, or and I should drive really safe. Other than that, I think the thought was that is the most useful information to improving in any of those areas. We can talk to the product team about how many 5, how many 4s, but my quick sense, and I'd love to get your feedback, is that doesn't provide as much value as saying, hey, this was a flag for a specific reason. It'll give you more detail, and maybe it's something that as we build out the driver portal more, that would be a place to address. You can see ride by ride. There is a mix also of anonymity, so we want passengers to feel comfortable giving feedback, and you're picking them up, you might pick them up again, and it's really important for the community to have a safe way to say, hey, because passengers want to improve the experience too, to make Lyft successful, and say, hey, this could have been a safer drive, and we want them to be able to say that without worry that they're gonna hurt someone's feelings or have that person get mad at them. So it is a balance, and I think that's why we've taken it the way that we have.
I don't understand how saying you have no 4s, 2 3s, 1 2, and 0 1s is going to take away anonymity.
I think that's right, if it's done in that
We
summary.
have format.
Yeah.
But as I was thinking through potential solutions, maybe my solution was not as good as that, which was like if you do it ride by ride, there would be the anonymity problem. So we can talk to the product team about what you're talking about, for sure.
And you could still say your issues were cleanliness, and you don't need to know who
Yeah.
said what, or if it was a 3 that said this, or
what I'm struggling with is I don't know how much additional value that provides, because it doesn't say, we're telling you all the reasons why someone gave you a lower than 5-star rating, which could be the flags, and all comments are passing through. So when we're thinking about, hey, should we prioritize giving you that level of detail, I would rather invest time on the engineering team in like the tipping UI or other things, because I'm not.
Oh, I
I'm
agree
not,
with that.
I'm not convinced that's going to add. I mean, there's the curiosity element that like helps solve, but I don't know that you're not going to have any actionable feedback to do anything
Return
with.
on the investment.
So
of $1 million.
No, if it's a choice between working on the tip or working on
everything's a choice to prioritize. There's so much other things that we want to do to increase driver earnings and do all this other stuff. So I would probably say maybe, so we are passing along all comments, and maybe that was part of the misunderstanding, that because I only got 1 negative comment, that's because you only got 1 negative comment. So we're passing on all text comments, we're passing on all flags, and I think that's the best way to take action and improve. And so we probably won't make any near-term changes with showing you all the different ratings, just because there's so many other things that can increase driver earnings, and this doesn't, to me, have a clear way that it will help improve, because you have no feedback.
Right.
Kind of like no news is good news.
Right.
And that actually makes me think of this other question that we had from one of our Chicago drivers and talking about drivers and what drivers are looking for and how we can improve with them. And he was asking, has Lyft considered rewards programs for our drivers, our good drivers, ones who are driving more, who have those 5-star ratings? I know we have things like the golden fist bump and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know, so like, is any perk one of the things that we're thinking about doing?
Yeah, I don't know if any of you want to talk about any perk a little bit more, but any perk, providing benefits for driving more. I mean, the driver bonus, the way we created that was to incentivize, like we talked about, drivers that are driving more, giving them a benefit. But we'll continue to come up with more ways to do that. And again, that's part of the reason, if there are specific ideas, that's part of the reason we want to have these Lyft Live sessions, is so that we can do that. And I can give you honest feedback of, hey, like, well, from the business perspective, and we all want the business to succeed, to help this community and movement succeed, that will be hard to do, and I'll just tell you honestly. But I think that's part of having Lyft Live is, tell me ideas how we could make your experience better, and we could come to the right solution together.
I think you guys would all agree, like from, really your contributions to Lyft and getting more involved, you've gotten to come to like all of these roles that you've taken on, and like Lyft for Good and all these experiences that are new because you were more than, just driving, you went above and beyond. I think that's what's really
exciting. And I think we're gonna, like, this program with roles for drivers is something that will continue to improve and create benefits for, if you're helping out and doing all these different things, you're planning all these events. I mean, I think there's like personal motivation to do that because it's fun, exciting, and you care about the community members. But we can also think about additional benefits. We can provide drivers who are going above and beyond to help the community grow.
Awesome.
I do want to take the support one because that's getting really popular. And I know it's on a lot of people's minds. So the question from Jesse, we don't know which city Jesse's in, but Jesse asked about a support number, and he's saying that it takes 2 to 4 days for an email response. And then he says, thanks for engaging the dialogue, but then comments that, as a company that has grown very big, why don't you have a phone line? So it's a very, very fair question. And there we go, we got it up now. So we know we need to improve the responsiveness and support. And as someone that comes from the hospitality industry, it's really important to me, and we're not doing a good enough job, and we know that. Lyft is growing so quickly, thanks to all of you, that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep up with the volume. And as an example, we've worked with a company that we can't possibly hire support associates and specialists fast enough to keep up with the growth that we're experiencing. And so we've started working with an outside company who also works with Airbnb and other large companies that can scale very, very quickly. And so we've recently started working with them, adding more and more agents. And we're, one of the priorities for this month is to come up with a long-term solution that, one, gets you to same-day response, and two, reduces the need to ask support for questions. So there's two approaches. One, let's keep adding more people, but two, what are the top 5 reasons that we're getting support inquiries? And it could be around pay, because the way summaries were sent, had an error in them. Even though we paid out the right amount, there was an error with Lyft line or something. And so from a product perspective, I think we should be prioritizing making it such that you don't have to reach out to support. Like, why did the problem even exist? And so I think attacking it from those two fronts, but that is top of mind. It is really hard to solve. I know it seems simple, and it's not just about throwing money at the problem and hiring more and more people. I think it's also about getting smart about how do we prevent any of these questions or concerns from happening. And then once we've done that and scaled up, we'll do both. Then we can consider adding on additional support, because we want to be responsive. So agreed, that is not the way it should be, and it has been made a priority. It is difficult because of the speed of growth, but that doesn't mean we won't solve it. We will solve it. and we are working hard to get there.
Awesome. So we're going to also do Mark's question here. It has to do with driver income, and he was asking. He said, "I'd like to know if you're monitoring driver income. I understand the strategy of having a supply of drivers before demand of rides increases due to new marketing, but it seems that there isn't a defined boundary. There are many drivers who are not getting as many rides as they're hoping." So.
Yeah.
Sort of
One thing that would be helpful, I think, in future Lyft Lives would be awesome to have, whenever asking a question, if you could tag kind of which city you're in, because that would be super helpful. So there are some markets where we think about there's two sides to the marketplace. There's drivers and passengers. And the most important thing is having perfect balance. And that's really difficult. And the reason it's important for drivers that if there was not enough drivers, in the short term, that's good for drivers, right? The drivers stay really busy. But in the long term, that's not good because then passengers, when they need a ride, won't find one. And then they will go use another service. And so that's why we're constantly trying to get to the right balance. And markets will go back and forth. And we're working to get better at kind of having knobs that we can turn so that we say, okay, this market needs more on the driver's side. And so we have these techniques to get that. And these markets need more on the demand side. And so we have new techniques. While at the same time, again, we want to make sure drivers are earning enough and that passengers, when they need it, can get a ride. The strategies we used to be get supply and then get drivers and then get passengers. And now I think we're better, but clearly there are certain markets where in Mark's question, that it feels like there are too many drivers. Another really hard part of that that is important is that wasn't Mark's question. That was a different.
Oh yeah. Mixed up a little.
Is the time of day. And so another really big challenge is that a lot of drivers want to drive in the middle of the day. Let's say even 12 or 1, which can be the slowest times. And then, a lot of drivers don't want to drive at 7, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. when it's really busy or on nights and weekends. And so there may be certain times, because, we have to think about providing enough drivers during all times. There may be times of the day where it's not busy. And that's why we have things like prime time to help balance that out. And part of the idea is that if in a not busy time, it's not beneficial for a driver to be around, then that market will correct itself a bit, and drivers will say, hey, let me go drive at 8 a.m. when I know there'll be ride after ride after ride. So we can absolutely get better. But one of the ways we can get better, I think, is informing drivers of what are those times, and we started sending that email where you can see when are the specific times, what are the specific hotspots on when you can earn the most. Because there's very few markets where there are not times when we don't badly need drivers, right? And in almost every market in that morning rush hour, we still need drivers. And so if we just stopped getting drivers because at 1 o'clock it's, or certain hours it's not busy, that would really hurt long-term the business, which would hurt drivers. So it's a really tough balance. Like I said up front when I talked about commissions, there's so many different things to weigh. We have to weigh, one, again, I take this driver earnings very seriously. I understand people are depending on it. We also have to weigh the long-term, growth of the company such that we can continue to expand for having this opportunity for drivers. There's also competition, and we have to make sure we have an enticing, ride available at the right price point, versus the competition.
Are you guys early bird drivers or weekenders?
I'm a late night, late weekends. Yeah.
Late?
Nights and weekends. Yeah.
All over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do what I lovingly call the Lyft to shame.
Weekend mornings.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning
Yeah.
from 6 a.m. until noon, taking people back to their cars and back to their, all those places that they need to go back to, and then late night, kind of depending on how busy each one is.
It's a different crowd every time.
It's a different crowd. It's a different crowd. Yeah.
Matt, I don't think we got to your question yet.
No, mine's a simple question. I've kind of become a huge fan of the pink mustache. Mine was actually pink for a while for one of our fundraisers. But what's up with the cuddle stashes coming in the welcome kit now instead of the full stash?
Yeah.
Very excited.
I love the cuddle stash.
I love them too. I guess my question
I love
is the
my
car
pink
stash
stash.
going away?
Yeah, so the question, how well can people hear us? Do we have any feedback on
I think if we do one at a time, it's a
Yeah.
little
people can hear
hard.
us?
So,
So the question was around what's the deal with the car stash, the cuddle stash, what's the future? One thing we announced a while back is Jesse McMillan, who's the creative director at Virgin America, has come on board as our creative director. And I don't know how many have you guys flown Virgin America or seen the kind of
Very nice.
he's really good at creating amazing experiences that are aspirational yet fun. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot we want to find. And I think the Carstache has been, as much as you're personally like, it's like a baby to me, right?
Right.
And it's been incredible part of this company. And it will still be a part of, this company and how we do special marketing or things like that. I think we can even activate it in even more fun ways. Drivers have already done that with lights and other things. But as we come out of like a launch phase in most of our U.S. cities, I think it's important that we think about we keep evolving the brand. And some problems that we've noticed with the Carstache is that not everyone's using it anymore. Right, and it gets dirty. And if it's dirty, then do all passengers want to get in the car with a dirty mustache? And then it goes onto the dashboard for some people because it's hard to put on and off. And so then it's like, well, is that obscuring view and is that safe? And if it's been outside and now it comes inside, so there's all those considerations. Like we want to have something that people can identify. That's my Lyft, and it's fun. You're right.
Yeah. Chai tea,
We want to still have that fun, but at the same time, if we keep pushing something that drivers are using less and less because of the difficulties of putting it on or the weather elements, then I think we're not thinking forward to how to continue that fun quirkiness of the brand. So there's more we can do. There's more we're going to do and have fun with the cuddle stash. I think the cuddle stash is an interim solution along with maybe a plaque on the car. Part of the requirements that we have with different regulators that we have to have a plaque on the car, like identifying it, and so we'll be doing that, along with the Carstache, and that's just version 1. But Jesse, master genius, Jesse is cooking up some fun things to further activate the Carstache and something even more exciting inside the car. So it is like super important to us, but we also want to keep evolving it for the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump into a couple smaller questions just to make sure everybody knows where the avenues to go down if you have questions about anything like that. Where can I meet other drivers in my city? So these events are on the weekly digest and weekly socials, like what Albert does is they're listed on the community hub. And then also one of our drivers said, I have an awesome idea for a potential partnership. Where do I go to submit my idea? This is a great thing. We have people asking about this all the time and some really cool connections out there. So what you'll do is go to the community hub, driver roles, and driver marketing coordinator. And that's where you'll have the opportunity to share your ideas and all of that. And I've heard some people really come up with some great ideas. So that's really good. And then let's see, we've got another question from our hangout over here, and it has to do with quarterly earnings and mileage statements for tax purposes. And do we plan on sending those out to drivers? I know that we send out the tax form, but any sort of messaging about what their quarterly earnings are?
Yeah. So again, I think this is obviously something that we should do, and I think it should be built into the driver portal. My understanding is that there's a running tally on the driver portal and then an annual number that we provide to drivers to help prepare their statements. But and then that we send, if you're over, I believe, $20,000 in earnings, we send
And then
1099K. It's like a special type of 1099. But we can definitely look to make that quarterly information easier to obtain in the driver portal. So that, Paul, can we write that down to check in with that info? Cool.
And one of our questions from the hub is about heat maps. If you could just talk like a little bit about the idea with heat maps and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we want to continue to provide tools that help drivers earn more. That's a top priority. And what we saw when we tested it on Android, so we're recently rolling out the heat maps, is that increased driver earnings, I believe, 10%, such that drivers were going to places that had more prime time and earning more money. It was a more efficient use of time rather than having drivers bunched up in a place where there was less needs, getting them to places where there were more needs, more rides, more prime time. So that's why we made the change. It just rolled out on iOS as well. And I think with some people, everyone's so used to seeing other cars on the road. But the data shows that drivers are earning more with the heat maps. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on your experiences with it, or why you like one or the other, to make sure that we could.
I do have a question,
Yeah.
and I've just seen this in the Pacific Lounge
Yeah.
for the past 3 days. Someone got a response from support about the heat maps, indicating that the pink areas do not indicate that those are prime time areas. It just indicates that those are busy areas.
Right.
But on the picture in the frequently asked questions at the bottom, it does say that you will earn prime time in those areas. So there's a mix-up, because I know a lot of us, including me, thought if you go into that pink area, it's prime time.
Yeah.
And even on your phone at the top, it will say, when there's
so
a pink area, it will say 25% prime time or 50% prime time.
My understanding is yours, that if there is pink on the map, that it is prime time.
Okay.
We talked about this yesterday, actually, in our exec team meeting. Do we want to add feature to see where it's busy and it's not prime time? And we said that's not something we're going to prioritize right now. So it should, the way it was built is such that the heat maps correlate to prime time.
Okay.
And that's just simply the way it's supposed to be working, and my understanding of the way it is working. And one way to know that is if there are times where you don't see anything, on that map, which will happen when there's no prime time, you'll know that's working correctly.
Because there are times in Sacramento, and I don't know about other cities, where we have the strip that says 25% prime time, but there's no pink box anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We just went like 4 or 5 days ago, so it might just start
Or
working.
maybe there was like a little spot that was outside the view of.
Yeah, it's like someone's house.
If you were zoomed out.
House party.
Everyone's at that
A house
person's
party and they're
Yeah.
leaving, right?
Yeah.
Well, on that topic, a lot of people in Nashville demanded that I bring up the same question
Sure.
about the heat maps. But from what I understand, you can't see the cars and do the heat maps at the same time. Is there a way to where the cars on the map would still be an option that you could toggle between? Because me personally, I don't care about heat maps. The way I've always driven is I look for where everybody is and I go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Chad is
I do the same
actually,
thing.
Chad is asking that too, and similar question.
Got it. So to answer, what you were saying, we don't have plans right now to build a toggle, and the main reason being that because again we have so many things we want to build, and prioritizing. We have found, and we'll know iOS data soon, but on Android, drivers were earning 10% more, and so it seems based on the data that having the heat maps led to drivers making more informed decisions about where it was busiest, and then therefore earning more. But I've heard multiple reasons why people like the cars. One reason being what you're saying is it helps me spread out. Another reason being like social purposes of being able to see your friends, and then
Well, the
I think it
community
was
finding new drivers.
yeah.
To communicate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a new driver. I need to go over there. And
Have you
introduce myself.
used the driver, like the cars on the map view, to actually meet with a driver?
Yes.
Yeah, all the
Really,
time.
to seek out new drivers. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Well, and even in Denver, there's a whole group of drivers who'll get together at Dunkin' Donuts, little
Yeah.
follow for Dunkin' Donuts. And you may not have been paying attention to when it was going to happen that week. I look at my map and I see like 5 names of people who are at Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like, I'm going to head over there because I'm going to get to see all these 5 people at one time.
I think there's other ways for us to accomplish that, and I think we absolutely want to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything we can do to help build the driver community and just Lyft as a community in general. And so, you know, right now I think the best way to do that is on the lounge. While we don't have the kind of like location aware, but something we could think about longer term is how we could do that as a separate view is what you're saying. It's not currently on the roadmap, but we'll think about it. And again, the main reason being that drivers say, hey, the most important thing is that I can earn money. And so we're trying to maximize that while still providing resources like the lounge, such that you could find someone and have these meetups, and then investing in this kind of new driver role structure so that, you know, you can let everyone know when there's a good event happening. But I think it's also something that people have been used to for, you know, up to and over 2 years. And so there's definitely a change. And so maybe in our next Lyft Live session, it would be good to get feedback now that people have had it for several months. And I can also come with data, you know, updated data to report back to you guys. And sorry, and I think Chad, just to answer Chad's part of the question was safety.
Yeah. He's a deputy sheriff, and he was saying seeing the cars feels a little safer.
Yeah, and so we still have record in case there's any safety thing to make sure everyone is safe, and whether or not they're engaged in a ride. So that doesn't, you know, disappear. So if there was any like law enforcement or anything need, we could work with them on that.
Yeah, and we track rides from start to finish, the whole route, and all that kind of stuff, as always.
One of the things I can't with the lounge, and I don't know if this has been fixed because I've been traveling out of country for the last 2 weeks, but if I, as a new driver, sign up through my phone number, instead of signing up through Facebook, I can't access the Facebook lounge.
Yeah.
And I know that they've talked about fixing that, because if that's our main communication hub, then everybody needs to kind of be able to get in there. So do we know kind of where we are on that? And if that's, because again, I've been out of the country, so I apologize if it's been fixed already and I didn't know.
So it has been fixed. And the reason we wanted to start doing phone numbers is because a lot of people don't have Facebook. And we didn't want to leave them out of, you know, being able to be drivers. And then people, but yeah, we want to make sure that everybody can be on the community hub. And
How do they get in then? Do you guys just
we've set it up so we can like change their application and get them in as a driver.
But all those people that have been waiting in the interim, is someone going back and putting them in?
That's a good question for our community hub and one of the CMs over there. But I know that you can do it through invitations, sending an email link, and that kind of stuff.
But I don't think we can. I think
that it would be one of the in-house community managers. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So should we? There's 2 maybe tougher questions that are piling up to top before we only have maybe a minute or 2, right? So, but I want to make sure as part of Lyft Live, it's taking on all questions. And so, are these the 2 top questions that are? So it's okay. So let's take the top question.
I can't see the name.
Why does Lyft seem to have zero focus on advertising? I see Uber ads everywhere, and there's no concerted marketing effort for Lyft. I know Mustache helps with word of mouth, but we need real marketing to get to new customers. So absolutely, marketing and driving demand is extremely important. I can tell you that our passenger growth is higher, faster than it has ever been. And I can come back with specific data on that next time. But basically, the month over month and the week over week passenger growth is, as a percent, growing faster and faster. That doesn't mean we can't do more, and that doesn't mean we're not doing more. And so some of the things that we're working on is some large partnerships that we can announce shortly. Hopefully, we'll definitely have a big one announced by the next Lyft Live session. And then there are 2 advertising campaigns being tested currently. One in Denver and one
on the side of a bus.
Yeah, and then one in San Diego. And so in Denver and San Diego, those are tests being done, and what we learn from those tests, we will then consider bringing to other cities. And then the other, why did your company place so much emphasis on earning extra income in your spare time, and then create a system where only 55 plus hours a week get the driver a livable income. And so that question, I think, relates to the new commission structure and the driver bonuses. Again, this is the really tough balance. We have, we need to keep the pricing at a level that is competitive. We need to have money to pay for things like the background checks and the advertising that people want to continue to grow the community. We have costs of onboarding drivers. We're looking to bring those costs down, get more economical about how we do everything as a company. But as I mentioned before, sometimes if it, as an extreme example, if a driver comes on and drives for only 1 hour, but we have, a few $100s of upfront expenses to background check, driving record check, advertise to find those drivers, we need to find ways to pay them back. And the drivers that are driving more hours, help us earn that back more quickly. And so that's why we structured it the way we did. And that's kind of the tough balances that we have to strike.
Awesome.
Any other, last minute questions here? How was any feedback, honest feedback about the first Lyft Live session, things that you liked and things that
It was awesome.
Thanks for coming all the
Thanks
way,
for
guys.
having me.
Flying in,
Thanks for having
driving
us.
all the way up.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I have a quick question for everybody here before you leave. When we were much smaller, we called every driver, and we really got to chat with them a lot more, and we asked them a couple funny questions. So you get to pick either if you could give a lift to anyone, who would you give it to? Or if you could jump in a swimming pool full of anything, what would it be? Marie.
Jimmy Fallon,
Good pick.
and water, but looking a lot better.
Either or both.
Gwen Stefani, hands down. I would love to have her in my lift. And I would love to jump in a pool of Jello. Watermelon Jello.
Probably like J-Lo. Hey, that'd be nice. And then jump in a pool of like cinnamon toast crunch. And then I would just like eat it.
Eat your way through. Nora, how about you?
I'm gonna go with Andrea Bocelli, but I want the karaoke lift to make that happen.
All right.
Matt?
I would go with Bob Dylan. He's like my hero. And I would obviously jump in a pool of pudding.
Matt is pudding lit.
I'd just love to jump in a pool full of Carstaches.
Best answer ever.
Winner.
We should, I do see that some people feel like there's a lot more questions to be answered. I'll stick around for another couple of minutes to make sure we get through a few more of the online questions. But we've covered the hour, so if anyone needs to go either online or here, that's cool. But let's just spend a couple more minutes making sure we get through some of all the questions. So when am I going to start answering the questions? We'll start answering them now. When are filling out hours actually going to mean something? I figured this was going to take care of the overabundance of drivers, but currently appears sort of a waste of time. Omaha, thank you for putting in your location. And so, so reserving hours used to be part of the system in the early days to help balance those things. And what we found is that prime time and giving information about what the busy times are the best ways to manage it. It's really now just a tool to, if it's helpful for you to get reminders about seeing some of that information. So you can pick the hours that are going to be most busy, and then you'll get reminders yourself. But that's the only way that scheduling tool is now used. It's a way for you to schedule your hours and a way for us to deliver information about, hey, during these hours, it's going to be most busy or you can earn the most. So no plans to change that. This is a question about the insurance deductible.
Yeah, from Jeffrey.
So Jeffrey Frank asks, can you please explain why the insurance deductible is $2,500? So this is just on the collision piece, which is an added thing that we provided because drivers said that this is great. I have $1 million of liability coverage, which oftentimes is 10x or so more than what someone has when they're driving alone. I'm driving not on the Lyft platform, and then we, a few months back, added collision coverage. One thing we were advised by our insurance team is that you want to make sure you create the right incentives, and you don't want someone, having an accident during their non-Lyft hours, whether their mirror gets bumped or something, and then taking that claim to when you're driving Lyft. There'd be no way to prove that, and so a driver doing that could would increase potentially the costs of commissions for all drivers, and so having that deductible helps align the right incentives. It's definitely something we can review, but I wanted to be honest about the reason why we did it. But Paul, let's put that down as well as something that we can review. We're constantly reviewing all the insurance benefits that we're providing, and if there is a way to kind of solve that, we will look to do that.
Carolyn's question is on cancellations and accepting rides when you're almost there. Do you want to talk about a little bit about cancellations?
Yeah, Caroline says, I don't like the idea of accepting a request, and when I'm almost there, they cancel. It's a waste of time and gas. How can this be improved? And so right now, there's a $5 penalty. I think it's tied to 5 minutes. We moved it down to 3 minutes recently, actually. So moving from 5 to 3 is a way to improve that. And we could potentially even consider moving that further down to a minute.
I think that's still 5 though, because that's the customer canceling. Isn't that still 5?
That's 3.
It's 3.
I thought that was if we cancel, it's 3.
No,
It's
it's
a
passenger.
Oh.
Yeah. So update for those that didn't know.
I did that for you people.
She did it. If passengers cancel within the now it's a 3-minute threshold, but again, let's keep reviewing that, and hopefully that will help, and maybe we'll push that even further down to if they cancel after a minute. So keep
do you want to
going.
do a couple more?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay.
How is it possible that you would offer your contractors $5 per hour to provide your service? The rates have been cut in half since I began in mid-June. I get consistently great reviews, and I'm a mentor who really loves Lyft. I also love playing Lyft. And that is Carol. I would love to know where Carol is from. But again, what we've been talking about is that there's this constant balancing act. And it's hard to comment on that without knowing the specific location. We are constantly tracking driver earnings in all markets. And there's sometimes, as I mentioned, where we get more demand very quickly, or we get more supply very quickly. That can throw the balance out of whack. We also are in a very competitive environment, so we have to create a unique, a value proposition that passengers want to continue to use the service, and that's why the pricing has to be competitive. That said, we've created a structure such that if you drive more, you have the ability to even get rid of all or most of the commissions, which aligns incentives with us. So again, we take that really seriously. Know that drivers are kind of the lifeblood of the Lyft community, but there's all these things that we need to balance. But let's, Paul, follow up specifically with Carol after we know which region she's from, so that we can look at the dynamics in that region and make sure we get a specific answer on that. So let's keep going a couple more. When will the actual real-time update of the fee? I'm constantly asked how much the fare will cost, but it's hard to say given factors like traffic. So I think there's 2 pieces to this. One is, we can start delivering you the amount after the ride, because that's when we know it happened, and I think drivers would like to see that after every ride. They know how much it was, and so that's something that we do plan to do. I think that's in a similar time frame to the next couple or few months to when we get the potential changes to the tipping UI. We can also start delivering that feedback of, hey, after the ride, how much. It's really hard to predict, as you say, given traffic, what the cost of that ride would be. And the danger of having drivers quote passengers is that there are so many things that can't be controlled and aren't known at the beginning of the ride. And if you quote the wrong thing, that could actually lead to a bad rating. They could get angry. So I don't know that I want to put Carlos or any other drivers in that position, but we can start giving you the feedback right after the ride, and it's something that we have planned. Let's select the next one just to Jeffrey asked, when are you going to start actually answering some of our questions? I hope you mean what we're doing now. If you feel like I'm not like addressing the specific question, please give me that feedback. You can even email me, john@lyft.com. But right now we're trying to get through a bunch of the questions. So
Can I answer this first, or
which one is it?
why can't we see the cost of the ride?
Got it. So we just addressed that. Why isn't there a real phone number for drivers to call except in emergencies? I think we addressed most of that. We do, because there is so much demand for the support team, we do want to prioritize the emergencies right now to make sure if someone's in a tough situation that they get very responsive service. And so we prioritize that as we continue to scale up support. Will Lyft consider an overhaul to the current passenger rating system? It seems to be getting abused by many, especially with late night rides or mandatory comment rating below 4. It seems to be rapid downside in driver ratings. So driver ratings have stayed consistent historically. There was a change recently of what we displayed. We were displaying something different to drivers in one place and to drivers in the summaries, and so we updated that so it might feel like ratings went down, but they have remained consistent historically. The reason not to make something mandatory when there's a 4-star or below rating, that could create a bad incentive such that someone then says, I don't want to deal with having to give this feedback, and then they might not give the honest feedback. So a lot of these things, again, are balancing. We want to get that feedback for you, but we don't want to make it a barrier for them to continue using the app or to continue to give honest ratings. So any of the big questions that are still left?
Yeah, we can get to all of these questions. I mean, we have people like you, Marie, who are answering questions in the lounges, and with the community hub, we'll be able to do all of that. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump through all of these and get through them. And you guys, thanks for coming out. This has been great.
Thanks for having us.
It's been awesome Lyft Live. I hope that we can do it again soon.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for everyone.
Yeah.
Talk to you again soon.